Yeah, I'm respectful.
But at least it wasn't something I could fix, and I'm glad it wasn't something I could do. I was expecting it to be something like stupidly easy, and I'm like, man, which made me feel at least a little bit better, because I hate it when it's something that's deep. Like, this is reset, I can call it, fire station 6 days ago. I couldn't find the damn Wi-Fi reset. And I called about it a little harder, and they're like, nope, it's not, it's going to box. What happened? The power went out, came back on, the generator came on. It's just not the search, so I went back in and looked. Apparently, we have a gateway on the top above where the network switch is. So we have a huge network switch. And then above that is the gateway thing. I didn't know there's a gateway, because the access points are plugged there and everything else. And it's not plugged into the same power strip, because I reset the power strip. He's like, oh, the wireless goes. How does the power going out make the wireless? Come on. Yes, but it wasn't caused by a power surge. I just like, I felt so stupid. I'm like, I didn't know it was here. I was like, he was snotty enough. I'm not like, I've been used to do stuff like that, but when it's networking, I'm not like that. Networking's hard. But I didn't learn that. Yeah, I just didn't know. I'm not gonna take it right quickly together. The touch screens, all that, right? It's like a minute, and I'm just like, hit that. Or not my game. But I troubleshoot the regular stuff. I can do that at the fire station. I can do Microsoft problems, Google problems, all that.
Process making.
That's what's causing the problem.
Bonnie's got a big job too. If you're not gonna do it, then Bonnie can go be retired, because she's retired again.
Yeah, right.
Retired from being
You
retired.
wouldn't pay me enough. I watched Julia, I watched Mills, I watched King. Actually, King used to sit down when we were in all the, the whole thing with the networks and the Common Core and so on. King would sit down and have a drink with us. He's all right. Isn't that bad? That's bad. Don't you think?
Yeah. Of course, this is interpretation.
I don't
You
know.
heard it. Yeah.
I don't know what's that. Pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Ms. Berry?
Here.
Ms. Mitchell?
Here.
Mr. Fountain?
Here.
Ms. Graves?
Here.
Mr. Peters?
Here.
Ms. Morgan?
Here.
And Scott. Okay.
Okay. A motion to consider the approval of the agenda.
Motion?
Second. Second. All in favor? Aye. Old business, discuss the district's reopening plan, which is due by July 31. Dr. Plum.
Well, I thank the board for on short notice to have this meeting because as you know, next week, the 31st is right around the corner. So we have approximately 8 days from now to have the plan. We've been meeting the last several weeks with PAT, with the Teachers Association, as well as with the administrators. And tonight I wanted to share with you and answer any questions you may have. This is a very rough draft. We have our actual plan will be much more in depth. This is an overview, so I just wanted to understand that, okay? But you'll know where we're going with this. I've already had it. I discussed it with Brian this afternoon and all the administrators. So the required components for the Peru Central School District reopening plan. We're gonna first and foremost, I'm not gonna read this verbatim, but I will do a number for the public if that happens. Students and staff will wear masks all the time when they're on campus. We'll be doing daily health screenings for the employees and students. Just as the Board of Education did tonight, the same protocol. They'll take their temperature, they'll answer the several questions, and then they'll affirm yes or no. If their temperature is over, now we're learning the new temperature is 100 degrees. If they're 100 degrees or higher Fahrenheit, they must go home. We're asking right now, and I will have more information tomorrow. I have a CSO meeting tomorrow to see what the Greater North Country is doing collectively to make sure that we're on the same page. But right now, we're going to be asking the parents and guardians to screen their children before sending them to school. We'll also one time a week, each of the grade levels, the parents will have to also go on to confirm on Parent Square the same attestation that you guys did earlier concerning or any of the things in effect. Do you have any of these symptoms? Did you contact whether it has COVID virus? And so we have an anecdotal evidence record, visual record of that occurrence. We'll also do random checks, but it's not a priority, but will be random checks with students throughout the course of the school day. Contact tracing is a real buzzword now, and it's really important. So keeping our kids together in cohorts. So unfortunately, if there was a situation arise, it's much easier giving that information over to the health department for contact tracing. So, a lot of the things that will be driven by this plan will have that association too as a theme. In the plan, we're gonna have daily cleaning and disinfecting protocols. School visits will be restricted to those required for school business. Unfortunately, it won't be an inviting place right now because of all the parameters that we have to take care of. We will have multiple spaces opened up for kids to come on campus because we worked on digressing to go to one single entry point, and now you want to have multiple points. Students and staff will be trained on proper hygiene and wearing a mask. We also have our safe schools, and that's an additional training also. Shared books and supplies, we're going to try to keep that to the best that we possibly can to a minimal. If the kids are in the library and there's certain sections, we'll then disinfect those sections and then also allow those books to be settling for 3 days. So it's a lot of careful planning in that. And like I said, I got ahead of myself, but the parents will fill out a questionnaire on Parent Square one time per week. Collectively, we're talking about maybe Mondays will be pre-K and kindergarten, Tuesdays will be first grade and progressive. And at the same time, we'll be able to also send out an email to our parents the night before as a friendly reminder. It's a very simple check. You check yes or no on that. Operational and academic intervention parameters for reopening. Well, let me stop. Board, have any questions on that? Yeah, Mr. Peters?
Yeah, just clarifying Parent Square, I got some communications about it and I like, it seems really great, I got the app and all that. Does that replace what teachers are doing in terms of, they used to do like, some were doing Remind, some were doing Class
Okay, great question on that. One of the things that we have to do is under Ed Law 2D is to make sure that we're compliant with student privacy.
Mm-hmm.
And Remind and some of the other ones are not approved by Ed Law 2D.
Okay.
So that's why we've gone to a one-stop shop with Parent Square. It really will be it's a learning process for teachers and even for administration and teachers. We've been having some sessions with that, but you can send things out very quickly, you can do text, same thing as Blackboard.
Yeah.
But also, when we become really competent at it, we'll have the ability, when we have something in Parent Square, it will go to our website and Facebook automatically also.
Oh, great, okay.
So,
I know it went out to parents.
yep.
Yeah.
So we did surveys for that, we were trying to also, we also tried to do a survey of our district to find out where the parents were right now, mentally, emotionally concerning. Are you sending your kids back right now? Some are definitively yes, some are still questioning based on what the plan is, and some are definitively no. So we wanted to get a feel for that also, where our community was. We got about 50% feedback on that so far, and our staff was supposed to be this week going in. Our office staff is gonna reach out to the parents also and contact them to try to get a much more robust, a good goal in surveys is probably 40%, but I'd like to see around 75 to give us a really truer depiction, because it also has a direct effect on our transportation. We want to really be as prepared as we possibly can be coming forward, knowing whether buses is gonna be an issue, making sure social distancing will be always a priority. But whether how many kids we're gonna have on a bus versus how many parents are gonna bring kids into our campus.
Okay.
So, that plays a role too.
So this is K through 12 is that a requirement for teachers to be on Parent Square, or is that administrative use only?
It'll be parent, it'll be our source of communication moving forward.
Okay.
So,
And is that we're gonna replace school tool, or we're still gonna use school tool also?
school tool is the
grade.
piece. Parent Square will be the communication tool.
Okay, so both of those will be still,
Yes.
so we're still, somebody asked me that, so we're still moving forward with school tool and we're gonna
Yes.
use Parent
And
Square.
if some of them are,
And
some
what
of
school,
us are not parents, should we be invited to go on it?
that's a question that came up last night, Bonnie, as far as the community members that do not have an association directly with the district. No longer. Those lines, the retirees, are people that don't have children or grandchildren in the district, do not have a direct line. We're gonna have to continually work on that, because one of the other themes was that, not everybody goes on Facebook or everybody goes on the school's website. But also it becomes quite expensive if you keep putting things into a newspaper. So, but we need to find a happy medium, maybe the availability and the ability to put something in a post office, to put something in Tops, and several of the businesses around the community for them also.
I just wondered about us, because we are in direct communication. Does it Parent Square go specifically to just your child?
Yeah, I've gotten one for each child.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you send like a district, like what we got was like a district,
Yeah.
It's only people that are associated, you're right, Bonnie, that are in the district.
Okay.
but we got like, you could send something, my understanding, pre-K 12, you can select the group, like high
Yep.
school, middle school, or whatever, and send it that way.
Jared Scott said the link doesn't work.
Yes,
Thank you.
Tom, I think I misunderstood. Will teachers communicate directly with parents on that Parent Square?
yes,
So if it's a class, like a fourth grade class, the teacher will say, hey, this is what's going on, or this is what we're doing. But it is also district-wide.
yes.
Okay. I got it.
So teachers have the ability, just so you know how the breakdown is.
Yeah.
If you are a smaller increment of the greater district and it was your class,
Yeah.
you have the ability to have all of your students.
Got it.
So you can singly do the parent only. I could do it to Mr. and Mrs. Peters, or I could do it to my entire class.
Okay, perfect.
You
Thank
can
you.
broadcast it that way or break it down to that level. And the same thing with the principals. Mr. Thurber, they can so they could do something as individualistic as like Michelle Ross can do pre-K to, or she can just do she have a class.
Okay,
So
that's fantastic. I'm glad that you got it.
maybe the next month I'll give you a quick, I'll have Mr.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you mute your computer to get the feedback? Okay, good, thanks. Daily health screenings for employees and students.
Yes.
Two questions. Who's going to be performing that? And secondly, are there any provisions for the health screenings for parents who either cannot afford or do not have access to thermometers for their own children.
We're waiting on that tomorrow because of the piece is, the district's not gonna be able to afford a $65 or $70 thermometer for every child in the district. The ones that are here, people can do it at home, it's on an honor system, but also when the employees come in, we have the thermometers here. If a parent notified us, we'd have no issue taking care of that also. But it's that area where the other part, we talked about a lot, and it's a good conversation I have with the board. We have 26 right now, Randy, I think, 26 operational buses that go out every day for bus runs. If we were gonna put a thermometer on every bus, we'd have to hire 26 additional people. Because you cannot have a bus driver do both jobs. And so that becomes a really great cost going forward. It doesn't have direct impact on instruction. But it's a good question. We did have that question also. I guess we'd have to almost deal with that on a case-to-case basis. It's the same thing dealing with internet. The same but different, you know, they don't have access to that.
Within the wording of the 145-page document, they reference it, and I don't want to quote but they seem to indicate that the preferred method is to have the parents do it before the children arrive at school.
Okay, and the same thing for the staff? right?
No.
Staff?
No,
So who's gonna be doing, that's the thing, the
Staff
teachers?
does it.
The staff's gonna do their own? Gonna monitor their own, okay.
Just like when you come in here,
Yeah.
the FedEx person, there's thermometers outside the door, the FedEx person takes their temperature, signs in, and then goes in. A lot of honor system, and I know when we listened to a law conference for a couple of days, and we thought, boy, the bus was a viable option, but you've got to hire extra people. And then the parent, they really said the parents should be doing it at home versus in the school.
We thought the delay, getting the bus moving again.
Yeah,
It would delay, up to 15 to 20 minutes, you'd have that much longer bus run.
so for staff currently, we have stations throughout the district on the entrance points, and those are managed by building managers. And then there are some substations that are also in existence. For example, there's a substation here at the district office. And it is an example of what a station is. And if you want to see it, you can just step out into the lobby and see it. But basically, it has instructions. It has hand sanitizer. And it has the instructions, which are, the first thing you do is you sanitize your hands. The next thing you do is in essence, take your temperature and look at the very same list of questions that were before you. If you, in fact, answer correctly to all of those questions and agree with the final statement, you're, in essence, cleared for work. You then sign the documentation indicating that you meet all the requirements. The other option for staff is they have it on Parent Square. They can do that on their iPhone, for example, if they have that. And the final thing that they do is they again clean their hands and exit the screening station.
Either way, we have anecdotal evidence, we have written evidence that our people have done that piece. Digitally from Parent Square, I do the Parent Square piece, but making sure we have to do it every day.
Yeah.
That was, as Randy, as you know, appointed, he's done a great job as CSRO as well as with his deputy Shannon, but on a serious note with Shannon and Randy, we had to do this in order to have reopening in the school for just coming for staff right now, the 12-month employees. Same thing will be conducted with the teachers as they come back.
So all the substations, of which this is a substation, that information is then passed on to the building manager. The building manager for the high school is the high school principal. So all that information, on a daily basis gets pushed to Matt for him to maintain the records for this building, which he's responsible for maintaining the screening on. And that duplicates itself throughout the district.
Thank you.
Anybody else on that? So the next section is the operationalize the academic instruction parameters for reopening. So for pre-kindergarten through fifth grade, we thought we had a plan as of yesterday, but today, every day you wake up and you look at email, something comes out. The latest documents have changed our thought process. So right now, pre-K through fifth grade is planned for, and we don't know exactly right now as we speak today, online, on-site instruction. I'm looking for further guidance tomorrow as I go to my CSO meeting to talk with other superintendents, and our council will actually be there, because she serves a number of the districts in the North Country. Because one of the themes that we really want to try to do the best of our ability is be consistent with other school districts for delivery of elementary, for the fact of childcare. You know, if Peru elects to do 5 days per week and everybody else is doing 3, then you got your staff members that not live here are now worried about their kids 2 days a week. They may not come to school those 2 days. They may have to do childcare themselves. So we want to try to have that consistent theme to the best of our ability. Right now with guidance, the original theme was to have students back every day in pre-K through fifth grade. The guidance is very, very clear right now, as we speak of today anyway, that their 6-foot social distancing must be maintained also in the elementary school. So that changes the dynamics and the parameters in which we work. So we'll have more concrete, and even then, it may change in the next 5 to 7 days before next week. So that is why we do not have a definitive answer for that. We felt very strong about it, but now we have taken the square footage of every space in the elementary school to figure out how many kids we can put in a classroom. Our classrooms average anywhere between 500 square feet to 760 square feet. And the classrooms are not perfectly square or rectangles, so the formula does not work strictly by 36 square feet.
Is it one child per 6 feet, or can we, I know
It's a
that's
6 by 6 with mask.
36 square feet.
So it's 36 square, because you look six to the side, 6 behind them, 6 in front of them.
because I saw like some states where they're putting shower curtains between like the 4 desks and.
You can't, that was the other thing, we had that discussion, we had with PAT, the problem with that is illegal.
Okay, I
You
just
cannot
thought.
put shower curtains, you cannot put non-fireproof type devices that change that in a classroom.
I just thought that was interesting that they were doing that, I was thinking, there's gotta be something.
Has there been any directives separately for these young kids with special needs and wearing the masks?
We also have, good question, we also did ask, Lee Sorgel has generated, I can show you later, I do have some masks that he's actually created, the shields.
Oh.
So for some of those kids that may feel claustrophobic, so we do have that availability also. And he's been making them as the product has come in, the rough product, he's done that with the 3D printers.
Cool.
So
They're
he
really
did-
nice.
So they're very nice.
He posted them on Twitter.
He did 25 early on for the hospital. I delivered those, one of the early things, and then he's made probably about 40 more for the district at such time. Okay. The social distance requirement is a very extreme thing, so there's a lot of guidance that we'll have in our final document talking about such things as bathrooms, early elementary bathrooms, bathroom breaks, mask breaks. You have to have that also. You know, to think that you're gonna have a child with a mask on the entire day is not realistic, but how we're gonna conduct that, talking about number of kids that are in hallways, eating in their classrooms versus the cafeteria. So we've thought about all these things. It's not right here in front of you in a rough draft, but these are just particular items, subcategories we will have in the document. So due to social distance requirements, all school spaces may be used as instructional spaces. Could be used in a gymnasium out off-beat, could definitely be used in a cafeteria and other spaces like that. You know, one of the other big pieces that we have collectively as a team talked about is cohorts. Especially in the elementary school where it's much easier to do that, is to actually have cohorts in the same kids in the same space. High school, you cannot be perfect with that for the fact that they change classes, that there is some heterogeneous groupings where they're moving around a little bit from different classes. Same thing with the middle school. Mr. Storms and the section are trying to keep the kids grouped as close as you can, but they still have to go to specials in different places also. So, it's a little bit more fluidity, but we're still trying to make sure that we have that in place.
NISBA did send something out, but I just looked to see if there was anything on, especially if they sent something out this afternoon. Again, they keep sending out the FAQs. New York State Education Department has the FAQs. It's like it's an ever-changing story.
Yeah.
But I didn't see anything. I thought I'd seen something about the special ed kids and the ones who couldn't wear the mask, but that was more on the bus.
In the last bullet under pre-K through fifth grade, talking about our traditional instructional program, if it's inside the brick and mortar, but there still could be modifications. Just letting people know, it's a buzzword, it's really frequently used right now, the new normal. But there is a new day in schools too. It's not tradition. It's not of the same old. Grades 6 through 12, the middle and high school. Right now, we're looking, and we're pretty consistent throughout the North Country, looking at an alternate day model with half the students coming in 2 days per week, and the other half of the high school and middle school come in the other 2 days. And let's just use hypothetical. If it's Monday, if it's a full week of school, you'll have Group A and Group B. Group A will come in Monday, Tuesday. On Wednesday, the high school will be shut down as far as students and staff. Let me take that back. Students in the building, they'll do remote instruction that day. And on Thursday, Friday, B kids will come in for 2 consecutive days. There's still 5 days of instruction going on, but the B students, when A is in the building, will do remote learning. So that could be asynchronous or synchronous. Asynchronous could be online, could be delayed. Synchronous means live. It'll be very independent based upon the class. Wednesdays is a half a day right now. What we're talking about is possibly getting teachers professional development and some of those pieces to stay current with remote and alternative learning that way. And then the other half is a deep cleaning of the building in the middle part of the week. What does that mean for the elementary school? It could be a very similar model. Again, we don't know exactly what the parameters are.
Can I ask one question on that? Just on the Wednesdays, the kids would still be at home, doing at-home learning regardless?
Yes, both
Okay,
ways.
sorry.
It would be on the if it was perfect week, Sarah, and A day was Monday and Tuesday, their tail end of their week would be, or
The last 3 days.
it'd be closure for maybe the lessons live on Monday and Tuesday, and then there'll be alternative lessons set up Thursday and Friday from remote or online, depending on whether it's live or delayed in the other kids.
So like, if you're saying they're going to school physically Monday, Tuesday, so Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, they're on online lessons, regardless if it's watched or dialing into a live classroom, or on Wednesdays, would probably like an independent. Like,
Sorry, I
that's okay. It would be like an independent lesson, like what they were
Yes.
doing before at home.
Yep.
Okay.
And we're trying to improve on that, the rigor to be much more rigorous and relevant. Rigor does not necessarily mean just more homework, but relevance. So for example, if Mr. Peters is in my class and I'm teaching, we'll use one of the new courses, say cybersecurity. He may not be live sitting in my classroom on Monday, Tuesday, but I'm gonna give him several articles that I want him to read. And when he comes in, we're gonna have that discussion. We're gonna have the discussion on current events, what's going on, and then you're going forward with instruction. It will just not be worksheets. We're not doing just worksheets.
Are we presuming that the hours of the school day, when they're in school, are the same as what we currently have?
That's a great question. We've asked that too, and one of the things we have to do is the attendance component. We are required by law to do attendance. And it was difficult in the spring to find some kids that are not super connected to school. We're gonna have a better plan in place, working with the police agencies, BHSN, all the agencies working collectively to keep kids engaged. As far as hour for hour and sitting in front of, let's just use an example right now. High school starts at 7:25. If it's remote instruction, they're not expecting the kids to be online at 7:25. I think, Matt, we talked about also, if you look at the remote planning that we kind of put out just for some feedback, we talked about a 12-hour window for teachers. I apologize. actually. Take it off. Shut it off. So when they're off days, when they're not live, they still got a responsibility, okay? But with the teachers on the remote side, they've got a window where there's direct instruction, but then there's also office hours later in the evening. You know, we also wanted to protect our teachers for the fact that sometimes people were taking the liberties of calling them at 6 in the morning or 10:30 at night, and we did not, teachers are not people's beck and call for that long period of time. Sharing, having good conversation with the PAT, they understood kind of like a window, but also still not requiring them to work more than what is expected. The other part was if you got kids going completely remote, but watching live lessons, you really want your child for 7 hours and 20 minutes a day sitting in front of a computer. It's not that advantageous anyway. So, the parameters that are a little bit different, but there's still a workload and responsibility.
And that will be all communicated to parents through Parent Square, so we can
Yes.
stay on top of it. And then if you're going like, hypothetically speaking, if you're talking about like a Monday, Tuesday, I was going to do like a day 1, day 2, so that they have classes that happen every other day, so if you have a lab science, you'd still get your lab in. So it would be a
They've given variance to labs and CDOS requirements with that.
Okay,
So to meet the requirements.
so that we won't have to worry about them trying to fit lab work in when they're not gonna be able to.
So it could be virtual or it can be hands-on.
It can be virtual, but they've given some accommodations on the amount of minutes for that, sir.
Okay, because I know that's a big concern with some of these kids.
Yeah, there's 1,200.
Will the AB change at all due to like a holiday, you know, of
Great question, and yes, we actually had that discussion today. So for example, say they have Monday off. Columbus Day is Monday, right? We would shift everything, so the kids that work Monday, Tuesday would now go Tuesday, Wednesday, and the other group would go Thursday, Friday.
so they could, 2 days in the classroom,
Every effort to make sure that everybody's got pretty much that equal opportunity.
as much as possible.
Silly question, but are we gonna have we thought about accommodating for siblings?
If it comes to that, yes, we have already talked about that. We talked about if the elementary and the secondary, the middle and high school are all the same schedule of 2 days and 2 days, then we're gonna have to make sure that we align that those kids, the families are all lined up for the same piece as far as childcare.
Thank you.
So, yes, Mr. Peters?
I was just gonna ask how the cohorts are defined in terms of, is it by class, or we can split each, like, grade class in half? You know what I mean?
At this time, we don't know because of the fact, it really has, there's a couple other pieces that are still floating around. For example, say everybody here's a teacher and you all are given 22 students, but say 12 of your students are opting out and not coming into school. So your cohort start is automatically different.
Yeah.
You know, so it's gonna be, at the beginning of the year, here's the one other thing I'm getting ahead of myself, which is to share with you. So one of the questions to ask the board tonight is to basically lift the rigidity may not be the best word, of our school calendar for the 2021 school year. And what I say by that is I want the ability to be flexible. We want to be able to give 6 weeks out for our parents because one, we're not going to have normal orientations or open parent
Open house?
open campus, right? We're not gonna have open house as normal, right? So if you already prescribed things from 5 months ahead of time, it's not gonna happen. We are really gonna be a flexible school district this year by month. Because we don't know at any time these best laid plans could go away and we go to strictly remote instruction. You know, and that's gonna change that piece also. So what my goal was to say to the board, let's kind of put it on the shelf and by August, say the week of August 18th is our next board meeting. So the 21st or 22nd, that Friday, we would have the calendar out for the month of September for our community. The second week in September, we have it for the entire month in October.
Subject.
Because we don't know, because it's subject to change so drastically. You know, we're not going to have, first and foremost, sports are not going to start before September 21st of this year, if at all. How do you run, I mean, they do some phenomenal things too in our performing arts. How do you run a musical, a play, the Christmas concert, you already got in the thing, and we don't know what that looks like. We may have to modify that. You know, if you look at a number of transitions already occurring in colleges. Colleges started school a couple weeks early and are trying to get out before Thanksgiving.
And they're not coming back yet.
Until January.
And so, you know, what's gonna happen for us? Are the parameters change all the time?
Yeah.
This is a constantly evolving piece. So one of the things that we have to make sure, and it isn't fair, and I get that as far as parents, hardworking people with childcare issues. You know, another thing that happens, guys, what happens if there's a tracing and all of a sudden you find out one of the daycare places, one of the family members has that and that shuts down and 14 or 20 people can no longer go there. You know, so I was actually gonna talk to the childcare providers and see how we can work collectively. I also had the YMCA reach out to us to talk about that also. But there's so many moving parts. And the thing is, there's nothing easy, there's nothing concrete and definitive in anything that we have. We have to set the best laid plans that we can, but with flexibility because that's where it's gonna go. I know it's hard to wrap, it's every day we talk about this and it's hard to wrap our own heads around this all the time.
145 pages and it changes every day.
Oh, and don't forget that it could change the first week in August after the governor makes a decision.
Yes.
Can I ask you one more question? Okay.
You can ask as many questions as you want.
So
That's what we're here
this
for.
cohort A and B, just so
Yes.
I understand. So if my kid goes to school Monday and Tuesday, will always be Monday, assuming there's no holiday. Are they always gonna be on Monday, Tuesday, or is that gonna flip at some point?
I think for consistency measures, Sarah, it could be Wednesday. Could
Right,
be, you know, it's gonna be consistent
Is
for
it
that.
either the
because-
first 2 days
Look,
or
the
second
best
2
of, the
days?
best of our ability, I will say this to you guys, the best of our ability, we want consistency for our families.
Okay.
That is always the thing, we want safety first and foremost, but number two, we want consistency, because you keep turning it upside down. Look at, when it comes though, if something was to come about and we had to make drastic changes, closing of the doors, that's not a lot of local control a lot of times,
right.
so.
I just wanna make sure if somebody asks me, if my kid's on a Monday, Tuesday, I assume it's just gonna be randomly assigned.
It's not, we never had that conversation, right, Randy? We didn't really ever have that conversation about, we're not trying to flip people. You'll have flipping on the rotation of the days 1 through 6, the 6-day cycle, but you're not gonna have kids. Your son's gonna have Monday, Tuesday, then a Tuesday, Thursday. No.
Okay,
We wanna try to keep it,
So they
again,
can plan
using the
it
KISS method, just trying to keep it simple, the best that we can.
that's perfectly fine. I just wanna make sure if somebody asks me, I would have that exact answer.
Everybody good?
Thank you, sorry.
No,
I feel bad because like,
this is your first chance to hear it, guys, so whatever you wanna ask, that's fine, you know? All right, so the last part is on the top of the second page, is just talking about the virtual instructional days. Answered some of the things you said, they are required to participate in classroom work and complete assignments. I gave an example down there, an example on a flipped classroom to make it a much more meaningful piece is students can complete independent reading in English. They could do also an essay, bring it in to evaluate, to critique it, to run it against a rubric, or in a math lesson, which we've had some people really doing flipped classrooms, where they watch the video first and then come in and then do guided practice. So some different concepts to go forward with that.
and I assume there's a parameter that the teachers have to follow within, like you don't assign 3 hours worth of, like an hour and a half of video work and then an assignment on those days.
That's our goal is to, again, Sarah, the issue, we didn't come down to the finite piece of that, okay?
No, I just,
But
I know it
it's
was
a
all
good
over the
question, but we
place.
need to make sure though that we're cognizant of that though. Look, we want to increase the complexity of what we did versus,
absolutely.
but we don't want to load them down of 8 hours of homework because it's remote.
Right. That was
There's
my
a balance.
concern. Because I know that it varied based on teachers. Some teachers were very light in some of the homework and the works that they signed, and what other teachers were.
Well, having this plan of a semi-hybrid, you're gonna also have that blended online all the time.
Right.
So we can guide that better, we can get more professional development, we can make sure that,
Well, it's
We're
easier to
getting-
space it out too, because you're seeing the kids twice, 2 days to help them stay on task.
So, yes, Mr. Peters?
Given that we're putting this effort on virtual instruction, does that mean snow days are no longer snow days?
Great question, can't answer that this second. I said the same thing almost like with a sick day.
Yeah.
If you did a lesson ahead of time, you could.
Yeah.
But that's something that we need to look at.
Yeah.
I thought about it, but
Your
it
students
hasn't
absent,
come,
are they absent?
but it hasn't come up on the front piece, because the other part is, if you look at a contractual thing, the teachers still are contractual for 181 days.
Right.
So even though we bill, I think this year we bill 5 days in.
Mhm.
We don't get those days.
Right.
That'd be a negotiated item down the road, but yeah, as far as future, like you said, with the new normal, it's very possible that just because it's a snow day doesn't mean we'll still be able to provide instruction.
Yeah, we should, right? I mean, in a way, I
It's
guess
a continuity of flow for the kids, yes.
Yeah,
Well, the kids, if they're out, let's say a child gets COVID or something, they're out for 2 weeks. Traditionally, if they're out for a long illness, they get very far behind and they have to do a lot of work at home. This would give them another avenue, the way I see it. I mean, that's the way I'm interpreting
Yeah.
it, to be able to stay on top of it.
You don't want to waste a good pandemic. If it's an opportunity to reinvent the way we do things to be more efficient,
Yeah.
look, it could be more efficient and effective for teachers also, not to make more work, but to have that and also have that video they created or that podcast or whatever, it also gives them memorialized that lesson that those kids can go back several times.
Sure.
Because we've probably all been there when you're trying to teach your kids something. I have spent more time in geometry, spent 38, 39 years going back on YouTube and trying to figure out some of the, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So if you've got the teacher's language already,
yeah.
it should be a smoother transition.
It's funny you had mentioned this. I have it written down. What can we do better versus traditional education? I mean, adversity sometimes is the best opportunity.
It's a forced opportunity.
Yeah,
And I'll tell you what, our teaching leadership team has been phenomenal.
yeah, absolutely.
We've had great meetings. They get it. They really do. I've been very, very impressed. It's just been a collaborative model. I mean, is it gonna be perfect? You get out the kinks as you start to go along. The hardest thing, guys, is like playing a game and not really sure what the rules are. That's the hardest part.
That's what we're doing.
But as far as the commitment to the district, I've been very, very impressed with the PAT in this. Wouldn't you say, Randy?
Oh, absolutely.
Great conversation, thought-provoking conversation, not entrenched in traditional ways of teaching only. They see it.
Yep.
I mean, so it's been some really good dialogue, but it's still a process because, the other piece is, the kids.
Yeah,
We gotta re-educate them how to do this also, because it's one way to come to school, be fed, and go home. Now you got some independence that you have to do sometimes also from a virtual standpoint. What's too much independence and still some guiding. So we're gonna go through the process.
Go back to emergency days, one thing that you're going to have to look at. Yes, the high school is out there in virtual days, but the elementary is in, and there's an emergency day. How do they twist that around and do virtual that there's going to be some inequity
You
there?
see,
that's true.
it's different, but the thing is, it's still different because you asked that question before, maybe Rob did also. We talked about technology.
Mhm.
Technology is available in grades 3 through 12.
There you go, yeah.
If you look at research anyway, it doesn't really say that kids in the K through 2 should have a one-to-one device all the time. But they definitely know how to get themselves around, things like that. So when you go to a remote instruction day like that, how can your teachers, because that's the part we talk about equitable access, right? Access points that they, you don't know, we've done a pretty good job. Nick and Amy have led the charge on that. On knowing where our internet capabilities in our district as far as who has the ability, who doesn't. Jared and Shane and Nick went out also and surveyed the kind of the area where the dead zones were. So we have a pretty good feeling. But still, if you snap your fingers and you go remote, we got a transition period for some of those younger families that may not have that.
Yeah.
So
What's the approximate number of people that either don't have internet or email or anything like that?
I'd say about 95% we're good.
Yeah.
We're about 4 or 5%. It's just some, what is it, Jared? Peasleyville?
We have trouble in Peasley, around near Peasleyville. The problem we have out there is you can't get chartered, you can't even get cell phone service.
Yeah, there's no data.
There's nothing there. Sarah would know a lot too.
I know where the
So
ambulance.
providing a hotspot really wouldn't do us any good because we can't.
They can't connect to the cell tower.
Right.
So,
There's also Signet Road, just go Signet Road off in Coppins, you know, that area.
Yeah.
They don't have any internet.
Well, right now with them cutting out 3G too, Verizon, there's a lot more dead spots than there were before for people who are using cell. And I think that that's gonna be coming to light too. Because I know just Linda and I were having a conversation, we're less than a mile apart physically.
Yeah.
And our phones cut out, 4 times? And that's just from lack of Verizon service that wasn't an issue ever before. It's just been the last couple of months.
so we're monitoring that also. I had AT&T email me today talking about, so we'll constantly talk to those vendors also and see if we can do anything, but you know,
Okay.
that is one of the other pieces too. Like I said, it's constantly evolving and changing. Everybody good? So moving on to special ed, so our goal with our students that are in self-contained and special education programs will be on site daily while school is in session. So our 1213 or 811s will be here every day and getting instruction until the plan changes. But that's our full intent though, is to make sure those kids are being serviced every day. Students that are receiving special services, that's ENL, speech, OT, still trying to continue to receive those services. Again, it gets difficult though, when you're talking about PT, if you can't, well, Linda, it's your field, that area.
Speech,
You
yeah.
can't get close to them, you can't touch, or,
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons we talk about math, so you can see articulation and see, you know, jaw structure and how they're pronouncing words and stuff, but that may be something difficult moving down if the restrictions become greater, but we'll deal with that as we come.
And didn't we read in that document too, that even though there's a shield, they said the teacher should be wearing a mask?
Yeah, I'm thinking, no, Bonnie, I'm gonna
I'm
ask,
confused
if
with
we
that.
can extend that shield lower,
Yeah.
than a traditional shield, you know, I don't wanna be funny, but talking like the hockey goalie's mask, you know what I mean, or catchers, instead of putting an extra piece though, we extend it.
Have a
So
continuous.
say you extend it to to your clavicles, you know what I mean? So you maybe have 3 or 4 inch piece to give you that much more for safety.
I would
Well,
have to come
There
back
are the
with
masks
that.
that have the clear.
Yeah. But here, the teacher was, you know, the thought was, in all the different situations that I've been in, is that the teacher would wear that shield so that the kids could see the teacher's face.
But they have to wear a mask. I heard about.
And they have to wear a mask. Now, in that 143-page document, it said they have to wear a mask in addition to the
What's the
shield.
point?
Whereas I've gone to the dentist's office, I've gone into the hospital for different things, and they're just wearing the shield. So I think maybe it was the health department that put that out, not the 143. Could have been that 20-some odd page document.
Yeah, that was the interim guidance.
Yeah, they've got
The
to,
state-
clarify that, because I think, like you said, if it could be a little bit longer.
Yeah, well, I will talk
If it's
tomorrow,
not
the health
insurance.
departments will be at our meeting, so I will also ask them that question. If that would be sufficient if we extended because we're building our own mask.
I just think it's.
We didn't customize it, probably from your forehead to your
Mhm.
chin, and then extend it whatever they said is acceptable, 3 inches, 4 inches, or whatever.
Mhm.
And those are easy enough to disinfect because of the
Yeah.
plastic nature. They disinfect easily, which is great.
So these conversations are having every day, and unfortunately, a lot of guidance and no real clear. General school information is to share with you, so, you know, an overview, but the first week or 2 weeks, times we dedicated to school orientation for pre-K students and familiarize students with school and the new protocols. Across the district, there'll be signage everywhere, talking about maintaining social distancing, washing of hands. Randy and Matt and Shannon have been working on 6-foot models to put on the tape on the floor to show kids what 6 feet look like. Just let you know, if you count 6 tiles are 1 foot by 1 foot, but we can also, you know, it's a math problem. Families will be notified of this, and the official start date, the end of August, that's what I kind of talked to you about, as far as, you know, as the plan comes out earlier. After tomorrow, if we learn, if the board's okay with this piece, as our overview, and we learn tomorrow what the parameters are for opening, for the pre-K through 6th grade, what are the parameters that we're allowed to do, we'll then post this to allow parents to start to plan. This is still generality. We'll have a document very similar to the one that I shared with you, the 140 pages. They'll outline the specifics of all the components and all the stuff. This is just an overview, okay?
But this overview would be available so they can at least have a quick look.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. You know, if the worst case scenario with lunches, the way we have to figure out how to stay in the classroom, also guiding and educating kids on food allergies, or if someone still doesn't feel safe, is the alternative location will be provided for students with the allergies provided to make sure we have a plan in place, thinking ahead that way. Whenever possible, hallway traffic will be one way. They always constantly talk about traffic patterns being one way, one entrance, one exit, not being the same path.
I read an article on directionality in hallways for children, and it was stated or proven or whatever, that if the arrows are on the walls instead of the floor, they'll see it 50% better than on the floor, because they're never looking down. Also, they stated that the tape that they use for the floors for arrows don't work because they're not water resistant, and the floors get much more saturated or whatever they use to wash than the walls, where the walls were getting sprayed. So it didn't affect it on the walls. But I noticed in, I don't know which food store, I think it was Price Chopper, they started just a little while ago with vertical signs in the hall. And when you, on the aisles, so when you start walking down those aisles, you see them quicker than halfway down the aisle, you look at the floor. So that might be a consideration for helping with the directionality of how they walk.
Yeah, Hannaford has those.
So, good point, thank you. There will also be no fields at this time, no field trips at this time. The only field trips, we'll still try to promote are virtual. But as far as physical trips, they're off the table. I thought of you right away, Mr. Mafoun. Best to our ability that the filtration and ventilation will meet or exceed the minimum requirements. We just replaced, as I said before, filters in our pieces. We talked to the staff today, and they were kind of medium on this one, but as much as we possibly can to keep the windows on the buses open on traveling, and as well as windows in our school. One of the things that we were very clear about, though, was you cannot prod open your interior doors to your classroom. They are fire rated doors and you cannot do that. That is law, that's not guidance.
Right.
So that's still, people don't like that because of the fact of the flow, but it is what it is when it comes to the law concerning that.
But were we talking about keeping the doors open themselves?
That's what I'm talking about, you know, those are
You
fire
can't-
rated doors.
Yeah, but we can't do it with, I mean, we lock the doors now, we keep them closed. But didn't I read in one of those documents, they were saying to have the doors open, not with the
Except for
wedge?
you read the second line that said, except fire rated door,
Okay.
correct.
Okay. So all of
Any
our,
door that's rated as a fire rated door,
we keep closed.
you keep closed.
Okay.
Down?
Thank you, Ms. Peters. You're very clear now.
It doesn't matter.
Teachers will be encouraged to have windows open and instruct parts of the classroom outdoors when feasible and of course temperature. Lockers will not be used in grades 5 through 12 because that's congregation and sitting. Now, I already know at the board, some of the members thinking probably as parents, what are you gonna do with jackets in the wintertime? Put them on the back of there's not a real clean piece on this. It also may end up being where the kids, if it works out right with the 8A, B day, you might be able to have a locker space enough for people that are 4 or 5 lockers apart. We have not at this time. One of the things is minimizing also the amount of books and devices they're bringing in other than their Chromebooks. Yes, Mr. Peters.
You mentioned devices, does that cause an additional problem with older students who are bringing in their own personal device, like cell phones and things?
We have the capacity, but that's a piece, right, that in the code of conduct we discussed already too, when where appropriate sites and not appropriate places and not appropriate places to use it.
Right.
The biggest thing is that district issued Chromebooks
Yeah.
are their primary source that they should be using.
Right, of course.
And we'll have to deal with the other one on a case-to-case basis, but we do have clear outline in our code of conduct on appropriateness. Any questions on that chapter?
Don't hate me.
feel bad asking so many questions. All right. You had mentioned, obviously going back to there's no AC in any of the classrooms, right? I didn't think so, but people don't bring their own units. We don't allow
No.
any of that or anything.
No self, we talked about that today too, is a question, there's nothing self.
Okay.
It's
So,
gotta go through Matt LaFay's office to make sure it's approved.
so if somebody wanted to bring in like a fan or something to recirculate air so they could take it and blow it out and then have the air coming in to create that flow, that would be okay if they,
We are talking about unified, not about the haves and have-nots, so it's gotta be a consistent theme across the board.
okay. And then you said, we talked briefly about lunches where they would be, but you said there's a requirement to provide lunch regardless if they're in the building or not? Is that still true?
That one piece has not changed.
Okay, so,
As far as lunch though, guys, I'm not sure whether or not we have qualified at this moment for the free and reduced lunch program completely.
So people want it to
We're on
deliver.
the cusp of that, but even though the free and reduced, the children that are free and reduced that are not in the building on those, we have a responsibility at this time.
okay, so they would still be provided food if they currently, right now,
Yes.
just the students that qualify for free or reduced price lunches.
I know free, I'd have to double check, I don't want to get caught in language on reduced, I'm not sure, Sarah, I will find
That's
out.
And we talked, I know you said one direction in the hallways, and at the high school, I know it's like a free-for-all, because they have like 3 minutes to get between classes. Are we staggering those classes in the high school?
3 minutes is not gonna be an issue right now. You know, 3 minutes.
Especially if you're not going to the locker, but,
Yeah, there's gonna be no hanging out, there's no hanging out looking for your friend from the next class or whatever, you're moving. But, you know, we're not gonna be sticklers on, there really shouldn't be an issue as far as, tardies to class or write-ups for that, because of the fact, you know, you wanna make sure kids are moving in a safe pattern. So we may even stagger, and this
That's
is
what
me speaking now,
This says
not
that.
on behalf of all the administrators, we may stagger classes ahead also to move them.
so like if you had 5 in the same hallway, you might have like 1 or 2 go out, so those.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what,
And
that
to
was
move,
kind of what.
to move. So it's a process. It's gonna be a learning process for all of us. The biggest thing is, you know, and that's gonna be building principal specific, but especially in the middle and high school, that's where they're moving. Is there allowance or not allowance to be in the bathroom in between? Because there's no social distancing probably during that time. But we're gonna have to wean through the process, monitor it and see, you know what I mean? So it's always creating that safe environment, but also let's be realistic.
The other question, I know that they said that you still are responsible for having fire drills, lockdown drills. How is that gonna happen?
What's gonna happen? We've got a plan in place where,
I just
you
can't
know,
imagine.
we're talking about even one time or whatever, doing a video to model and show that piece. But, you know, you think about it, if you have half your students, it's not gonna be nearly to the same issue. You can move them out to the safe zone to where they need to be for that piece.
You said it might be in
Lockdowns,
sections, right? So
yep,
that you
same
do a
sections like
fire
that.
drill on west wing of middle school.
You know what I
and
mean?
then-
You can modify that. but
Okay,
we-
I just wasn't, I was thinking, holy cow, how are you gonna do a whole building?
Well, like, for example,
No, that's
October, is it third grade we talked about? October 3rd, we go home early girl. The only thing that's going home early, which I don't want to get ahead of myself, I'll talk about that in a few minutes, but I'll talk to you.
Okay, I think,
Any other questions?
you talked
We can
about.
always go backwards too, so
You
this
talked
is,
about refusals, that some people if they choose not to send their children at all.
we still, that's to be determined,
Okay.
TBD.
I know that you had mentioned that at a
There's a
point.
number of things on that, everything from remote only, I refuse to come in the building, to homeschooling. So we just need some clear delineated language to discuss.
So that's something we still have to clear up
Yep,
with the
and
state.
we'll then
Okay.
share that with the public also.
Perfect, thank you.
Everybody good? Okay. So extracurricular athletics, physical education, performing arts. So this broad piece right here, looking at the feasibility to provide phys ed, performing arts, given that, ensure that 12 feet between participants is assessed. So looking at the physical, give me 1 second, Mrs. Morgan, and I'll answer anything you got. So with phys ed, for example, they want 144 square feet, and the same thing with music for the fact of spit, and just general use of certain things, the woodwind instruments and things like that. I know it's not the same as the drums, percussions, but, so we have to look into that, have conversations with our staff on that and see what the availability of space is. Yes, ma'am.
It's just a comment. The New York State Music Association, I was reading an article yesterday that they're in conversation currently with the state ed because of the 12 feet. because it's contradicting the current research that's being done in the universities, saying, because of course it's addressing the woodwinds, it's addressing chorus, but their research is showing it doesn't need to be that far a distance, so they're in conversation currently. New York State on that.
Please keep me abreast if you hear it before I do. If it comes out in a red document, I'll share it with you.
Yeah.
So right now, but that's the last, as the last guys right now, that's what the recommendation is 12 by 12. Currently, interscholastic sports are not permitted. Additional guidance is gonna be expected to be forthcoming. The date that they give them to us, and I shared that date with you, is September 21st. And there's nothing before that. They also came out with an alternative plan of the 10-week sports seasons. So we'll wait for further guidance on that. Extracurricular activities, I've spoken with the building leadership on that. We'll examine that, determine what we can do virtually and how to engage kids. It's not like just a Google Hangout. We want kids to be involved. It's a very unique time in the kids' lives right now. If you take sports, and you take the other performing arts away from them where they don't have the same level of chance to perform, how do you keep kids engaged? How do you keep them? So, maybe it is a music club, maybe it is a drama club where it's a different way to perceive it, but whatever it is, let's make sure that we can get them, engage them and keep them engaged in the process. I use those two examples, but I'm talking across the board though, as clubs and activities. Things that are engaged kids. Like one of the things that to share with you, the esports, for example, the esports is not really the sports that you see kids playing like basketball, football, but it's strategy games and stuff like that. And the kids here did I think Sarah, both are one of the boys. Both are very, very engaged in it. And our kids actually did really well against other schools for kind of being a makeshift team that came together halfway through the year. Expanding that upon, how do we keep those kids engaged? As much as anything else, it's engaging and interacting with your peers. The other part is that we have a new piece with that Amosite platform. It's an artificial intelligence platform that we can use digitally to engage kids. And I'll give you an example of two of the classes. One is cybersecurity. The other one is C++, intro to gaming. So kids will have an opportunity to start to engage in things. Otherwise, we may not be able to provide here. One, because we don't have the expertise of it. Teachers there's a broad spectrum of teachers, but they can't be experts in everything. And so the actual one, cybersecurity, is going to be taught by somebody at the University of Michigan, but co-sponsored by a teacher in our district. And kids will have the understanding of two things. What is cybersecurity? What are some of the job opportunities and career choices out there? It's not a heavily populated thing in the North Country. But if you look at big cities, banking industries, all those type of things, there's a lot of people that are looking for security in that modality. So it's an exciting time also to have that opportunity. Any questions on that? Okay. So the shift to virtual learning in the event of a school closure. Of course, if we're told we have to close, then we'll go completely virtual. We'll go from the hybrid to the virtual model. Pre-K to 5 will resemble the in-school schedule at home, a combination of synchronous and asynchronous teaching lessons, online group work, and small group instruction. And the time spent will vary by grade level, be of age level and grade level appropriate. And 6 through 12, the same thing. It will resemble, but it will not be the same exact hours of the day that the kids are going right now. If it's 7:20 in the morning, it will start, I think Matt said 8:45 or 9 o'clock. And the lessons, it may vary with the kids. The kids may have some input with the teachers. I said may. I meant that. Students and staff attendance on that piece will also take place. They have to do that for record-keeping purposes for state ed. Students grading and reporting practices. Grading protocols are being reviewed as we speak, and it will be shared at the start of the school year with the students and the parents. The district will issue report cards based on the scheduled cycle at the high school and middle school. It'll be 4 times per year. The GPA will not be a pass-fail this year in the high school. It will be a GPA, an actual grade. In pre-K through 5, it will be continuing with the 3 times per year, December, March, and June. Transportation, another interesting one for everybody. Masks are required to ride the school bus. No mask, no ride. But we will also make sure that we have provision, we are providing masks on the buses if a child does not have a mask. So there'll be those temporary masks every day available to kids. They will wear masks riding the bus. Parents and guardians, we're asking them to screen their children for the fever before getting on a bus and constantly remind them in weekly reminders. It may get redundant, but to remind them if students are sick to stay home. Perfect attendance is not as critical as being healthy and not infecting your classmates. Students will be assigned to seats for appropriate social distancing. Also, we're requiring that, may require, because depending on the relationship with brother and sister, to put them in seats together. So that will not take up a seat in isolation by itself. Parents are encouraged to drive their own students when feasible. We'll also have our new roadway completed at that time, so we'll have drop-offs both for high school and middle school. And there'll probably be 6 or 7 spots where they can go into the building. Buses will be cleaned after every run, and then they will back out. And the thing this year, because we're talking so much about contact tracing and talking about that piece, is we cannot afford not to know where our kids are if we had to have an issue. So we're asking this year that bus notes will not be accepted this year. We can't be flipping kids every day to a different bus. And the reason for that also is if we already have that assigned number of kids and all that, but a bus is full, because remember, we don't have the ability to put 60 kids on a bus this year or 48 kids on a bus. The maximum number of kids, give or take 1 or 2, if they're family members, is 22. And that's every seat occupied with one child with the tall backs. It'd be very cost ineffective for one to have to run a separate bus for one child. And number 2 is if that child's riding the alligator bus or bus 110 all the time, and then in the afternoon they're riding 3 different buses, it just opens the doors that much greater for having that issue. Again, I'll go back to our initial reason. It's about safety for students. And as you see, the disclaimer, this document is subject to change based on new information that may come out.
One question concerning staff. If a faculty or staff needed to be quarantined or did develop COVID, is that a initial guidance, I think, from the governor was that it would not go against sick leave?
That is correct until December 31st of this year.
So it's still in effect? Okay.
Yes, it is.
Thank you. And likewise for students, there's, attendance is obviously very important, but safety is going to be the first priority.
Safety is paramount.
Thank you.
Award perfect attendance awards.
But again, if
Perfect
you're
health
sick,
award.
Yeah, perfect health. Yeah, I like that better.
but if your child is sick and you're keeping them home, I'm sure if you notify the district, they could have the same opportunity for remote learning for a lot of
We gotta
classes.
stay away from, perfect attendance should
No,
not
I'm
be
just
that.
saying though, if they're home, just so they're not falling behind.
Right. Well,
Some of
that's,
these classes, if you miss a week, you're gone. You don't.
that's the
have-
goal this year though, because of having so much more online and having the ability for that,
Right,
it'd be harder for kids to fall behind, but also we need to make sure we support them.
correct.
That's why we talk about office hours and availability of people anyway, make sure we communicate.
I think that's I commend PAT and everybody else for coming together and understanding, not just, and you guys administration, because it's not just the being in the building, it's the social, the emotional component. These kids need to see their friends. They need to be in the same physical space. They need to have that continuation of where they've been for your seniors in high school, your 11th graders. They don't know any different school. Yes, it's changing and it'll probably be changed going forward. But getting back to some of those things it gives them that stability that they've been missing.
And social emotional will be addressed in our plan, but this is just an overview right now, but that's a whole subchapter.
Scott, said something.
Hey, Tom, with the remote learning, as far as our abilities to the teaching staff to be able to monitor the students. I know there was issues. I know some of the professional staff has mentioned it to me in passing. The Go Guardian program that some of the other districts uses allows the teachers to monitor what the activities students are doing while they're online. And if they're off task, they can actually, set up scenes where these students are going to have to work on their assignments before they have the ability to go into anything else. The program that we're using in Peru right now is not working because the teaching staff doesn't have the abilities, my information, to be able to do that. So are we looking at upgrading your program to something that's more conducive to the educational environment online? Other than, to give you an example, this was brought up to me by a parent. I didn't know my child was spending 8 hours on a video game at night on the school issue Chromebook because, nobody else couldn't see it either. Where with these programs, we'd be able to monitor it, where the teaching staff could to make those adjustments.
I'm not going to comment, Scott, on something I don't know. I know with the new platform of Amosite that our teachers have a lot of control over that piece. The ones that'll be using that will be introduced to that this year as far as student assignments and work. Concerning Go Guardian, I used it. I need to check and see where the status is. If you want to even email me somebody that I can communicate with them to find out what they're actually talking about. Did I lose them? So if you share that with me, then I would reach out because this is the first I heard about it was what you shared with me tonight, and it's never been brought up at any of the conversations I've had with PAT. But if you've heard about it from other places, I definitely will look into it. So just let me know.
Sounds good, everyone.
Appreciate it.
Steve? Looking down the road, obviously there's so much that's in flux, but it sounds like, we've got this foundation anyway of how to move forward. Is there any guidance at all that shows us kind of what the magic number is to return to normal? And I'm gonna follow up that question with, should we think about, do we want to return to normal after this? You know what I mean? Like,
Good questions. First is Governor Cuomo's given us real strict guidelines on the piece on return that we are right now. Bonnie's been gracious enough to give me some information that we were at 0.4 and up to 0.9. And the cutoff point for Governor Cuomo was 5, and then 9 was shut down.
Yeah.
Those are clear, definitive, right? 9% of the population in your area, which would be a more global piece. As far as what you're talking about, the innovation piece is, I'm really excited about Amosite on the baby steps we're going to take and continually move. I think what's best for education and best for kids is a conversation. Well, sure. Originally, I was going to talk to the board about a conversation about possibly and this is a conversation that's not going anywhere, but talking about the possibility of flipping the schedules of elementary and secondary school kids, as I've shared with literature before with everybody, that sleep patterns and the productivity of juniors or middle school and high school students are much later in the day. It's 9 o'clock, that's when they start, and they even have evenings, right? The kids are up later in the evenings. But with everything going on with our district, it's not a good place to have, and you need a little longer to actually have some community input and talk about it. But the research is out there. And the other part is getting people on board and giving them a year's notice for the fact of childcare, because if you're flipping the child schedule to earlier, they're getting out earlier. So if they don't gotta work till 5 o'clock, and normally we don't leave here in our elementary school at 3:30, there's some fluctuation.
Yeah.
But that is a sound educational piece. The other piece to tie in what you're talking about is I'm excited about the opportunity for evening courses and courses outside the rigors of the brick and mortar to give kids opportunities for those opportunities. Create opportunities outside the tradition. But again, it still falls within the confines of a teacher contract. So you have work hours and you have those pieces. So you've got to negotiate and work it through the teachers union and talk about some flexibility. It could be flex time. You know what I mean? Start time and ending time. So there's opportunities out there. The way we look at things, the way we deliver service to kids. But again, the same part going back to Sarah though, is still a lot of times very traditional for kids on that social emotional piece where they want that connectedness to their classmate. When you go, if anybody's taking a completely online class, it's very cold. A lot of times you're typing a lot of threads and you're doing things like that, but you never even see people face to face. So it's a balancing act, you know, certain kids that we learned in this 3 months actually did pretty well, that thrived in that environment. So a blended model would not be a bad thing to discuss going forward. You know, the other part that I like also is a part about a co-op, is working and have kids work and do a work experience as part of what they're doing. What better way to do hands-on experiential learning, right? So there's lots of good conversations to have. The problem right now is always the overkill right now that we have, guys, it's always the highest priority is safety. Safety kind of always trumps creativity right now. You know, we're trying to creatively create a safe environment.
Right.
But I think once we can stabilize ourselves in this environment of the virus and gain control over this over a period of time, I think the next conversation is about that.
Yeah.
About student opportunities and creativity. But right now, you know, nothing we can do really will supersede the number one thing is safety for students and staff.
We're fortunate in our county, because I just looked it up, it's 0.7% today.
Yeah.
0.7.
So,
So we're very fortunate in our county. How, are we going to maintain that as more people say, oh, wow, that's a safe place, and they come and visit? I don't know. The other piece we did learn too was that if somebody was COVID positive, tested, you know, went home, tested, they'd have to stay out for 10 days, be with fever with medication, off that for 3 days, and then be no fever without medication for 3 days. That was something that came up in the.
and we'll have that in our deeper document,
Yeah.
you know, that'll be outlined exactly. But basically you see what the conversation's being had, we've got much more. So now the work really comes into play about just putting the pieces in. So all the administrators have done that. Great conversations with PAT. They've given us some survey data back and talked to us a lot about that and brought a different lens also that you don't always think about when you're working with the same people. So I've been really feeling good about the collaborative piece on that and having good conversations about student learning, but first and foremost, staff and student safety. And so what we've got is the next step. Does the board want to have a board meeting next Wednesday to see the finalized plan? Are you happy with the direction? You'll still get a copy of it, but this is kind of where we are because on Friday I have to submit. So
Friday the 31st.
Friday the 31st.
I was very pleased.
Yeah.
To see
I
what
think-
you got. My biggest concern was making sure every student does some interaction, and this plan accomplishes that.
Yeah.
This is huge to get the kids back because of two reasons. One, for socialization skills, and also to try to fill in some achievement gaps.
Mhm.
Because they've been out of school since March.
It's a lot.
And it's not the same when you can't, you know, touch, feel, see that child and be engaged with them versus, you know, this was a new experience for everybody.
You know, I think you can give us the updates. I mean, we saw this. I mean, are we going to sit here and re-listen and rehash it? We're not the ones that are going to be out there in the field and working with it.
No, and I think like we can read it, I can fire off questions just like we're doing
Yeah.
now and get answers, and I don't really have a problem with not having.
Okay.
Your time and leadership time is precious right now to try to get this plan in. You know, and to have another meeting to, you know, to get a couple of questions answered, I think your time is more valuable than that.
And I think
Right now.
even as we go through the plan into the weekend and early next week, if there's chapters, I'll file them, I'll shoot them off to you. Just want to make sure the board is in the loop because of the fact, like what Sarah said, if somebody comes to you, you say, yeah, I do know about that. Or, you know, there's further conversation to being had because we don't have all the answers at this
Or we're
time.
getting closer to a finalized plan, here's what we need.
Well, and what's being submitted to the state is really, did you do this? Yes, we
Well,
did.
they gave me 18 pages of assurances, so they're really particular. They want written protocols for everything.
Where are we with our PPE? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Are we?
We have ordered, we have on order, we have 6,000 cloth masks and 10,000 It's a paper mask or.
And is that the cooperative purchasing agreement through
No, it is
BOCES
not
or
at this
something?
time, but we still, I think Matt got what did he get, the cloth mask through BOCES, I think?
Perhaps through.
We're getting
BOCES,
even
yeah.
better prices than the cooperative bid. I mean, they're getting down as low as 20 cents.
Yeah, because I was reading that there was another school district somewhere else in the state that had purchased like 30,000 cloth masks through their BOCES agreement because they were even cheaper than the paper
Well, the
ones.
guidance that we have right now is 3 masks per person, 3 cloth masks for students and staff. So you're looking at approximately 2,000 students and another 300 staff.
And then we have, I mean, I assume you have to have like all the cleaning supplies.
We have tons of cleaning
And we have
supplies.
foggers for buses.
Yes.
So I mean, is there anything though that we're,
We've been through this fine tooth comb. We have foggers for almost every bus.
so we're not having a problem getting this stuff finally?
We've been very fortunate with some of our contacts to get us some of the things that otherwise,
And Matt, today was on top of this.
Oh, I know.
Before anybody else was, it seemed like.
Matt's done a great job.
I appreciate all of it, because I know it's not easy to find the stuff, I just want to make sure that if
He
there's
has
something.
multiple contacts that we've been in contact with. Mr. Sullivan, if you remember him from the Apple Orchard owner and also the person with lacrosse, he reached out to me and was sharing one of his vendors with us that he could possibly get masks from.
Excellent.
Brandy, the town supervisor, I met with him the other day, had a conversation. So a lot of people we're talking, a lot of communication and trying to find the best price.
And in the document, what it said we had to have 3 cloth ones or 3 disposable ones?
3 cloth,
3 cloth, and then we had to have disposable also.
disposable available. So that's for children in the classroom, but we're gonna hit them ahead of time.
Yeah,
If they're not on the bus, you're handing them one anyway.
I
And
saw,
if it's wrecked during the course of the day, you have extras anyway.
I saw something, a lot of the kids,
Sorry.
yeah, the kids had, I saw something where the kids had, you know how the kids wear their tags around their neck and so on? That the kids had the mask also hung there, so that they didn't lose the mask. So that's another little teaching moment.
That would be.
I saw that the primary school put out, or Michelle did on Twitter, like ways to get your child to start wearing a mask at home to get them ready for the school day. So I appreciated that. We're trying to start that now.
Now that you see a few kids in the stores and so on, you see them all wearing masks.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is good. I mean, I think that the kids are not going to have an issue with it, I think, just like a lot of other things, kids are not going to have an issue with it.
They're just gonna be happy to be back with school.
Mhm. Any other questions or anything?
I'm very happy with this. I think you guys have done an amazing job.
Scott, you're gonna email me about that too, Go Guardian?
Yeah, I will, Tom. I'll also give you a call in the morning.
Okay, well, call me early because I'll be at BOCES from 8:30 to whatever. I'm here about 6:15.
Sounds good.
Do we need to
Anything
approve
else?
it? Do we need to officially do anything?
I don't think we have to.
I don't think you take action on it,
No,
Sarah.
right. No.
I just wanna make sure I kept the board invested in this and involved so that if you had any questions, somebody came to you. And again, this is still broad strokes.
Right.
For sure.
A lot of detail on that.
It is.
Okay, we have, I know a couple of people talked to me about an executive session. Can I have a motion to go into executive session?
Motion.
Motion, Mr. Peters, second, Mrs. Mitchell. It's for personnel matters. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, yes, Mr. Jared turns us,
Are you gonna have any action after you come out?
no,
So no action.
no action on for you.
Okay.
I think there were just a couple of things that came up that I wanted to talk to you about.